Hi everybody, my name's Mr. Francy and welcome back to Mr. Francy Reads. Today we are continuing on with my favourites and non-favourites for the first half of 2023. And when it comes to non-favourites, there is no video quite so much a non-favourite as the worst books video. Oh my goodness, this video is probably the most controversial video that I do. I only do it twice a year, and that is because, well, I am always realistic when I talk about my books, but I don't ever, outside of the two videos I do, first half of the year one, second one, the end of the year, with the worst books, where I don't have a video outside of these where I'm just dumping all over books. But anyway, look, I will say this. Take what I say with a grain of salt. I am going to tell you why I didn't like these books, and that may actually help you in two different ways. If you agree with me and you think along the same lines I do, it may stop you from picking up a book because you now know that it's not the book for you. But if you disagree with me thinking it's one of the worst books I read this year could be a positive for you, because that thing I don't like, you do, and may make you want to pick up the book. So either way, of course it is a personal thing. This is just me giving you my own opinion. With that out the way, let's jump right in. I'm going to give you my top 10 worst books for the first half of 2023. And boy, have I read some clunkers. So we're going to start at number 10, which was it was fine, but it did enough to make it onto the list, through to number 1, which was the worst of the worst. Let's begin. Coming in at number 10 is Death of a Cupcake Queen by Lee and Hollis. It's book 6 in the Haley Powell Food and Cocktail Mystery Series. This is absolutely a personal bias that it made it onto this list, because some people love this book. The reason I didn't is because this to me was a snapshot of something I've already seen done before. So in this one, we continue to follow Haley Powell, who is our amateur sleuth, trying to solve a mystery where she's at her high school reunion and the queen bee, who, you know, is the queen bee or was back in the day, gets murdered, and we have to try and solve the murder. I've seen it done before. It just wasn't appealing to me. The reveal was rather meh as well. It comes in at number 10 because it was one of those take it or leave it, but I need a top 10. There you go. I mean, it was disappointing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, so, loosey-goosey with my ratings. The first 3 books in the Haley Powell Food and Cocktail Mystery Series got 5 stars from me, and I thought that every book would. So book 6 did let me down. It's just it's 10th and not first, because it was more of a meh feeling than a, oh my gosh, this was horrible feeling. Coming in at number 9 is Apple Cider Slaying, which is by Julie Ann Lindsay. Okay, so I actually almost DNF'd this book, but I did keep going in the hopes that it would get better. The reason why is because apples and cider don't really interest me, and we spend a lot of time at the apple orchard. I think a lot of people will love the series. I just don't. I am still going to read the 3rd book in the series. I've read books 1 and 2. I am going to read the 3rd one. It's just the cozy side just wasn't appealing to me, so it made it onto the list. For those of you who have been with me for a number of years now, please don't concern yourself. Mr. Francy will get emotional as we get further on up in the list, but we're just at the beginning stages at the moment, so it's okay. It's just, silly little reasons that we're throwing out there, like, oh, I just didn't like this, okay? But wait till we get further along, then the emotions really will start to come out. Okay, coming in at number 8 is Pulp Fiction, which is actually book number 2 in the same series, Apple Cider Series by Julie Ann Lindsay. So yeah, just not for me. More mystery leaning than cozy leaning, and nowhere near enough time spent at Winnie's Cider Shop. So to be specific, the book that came in at number 9, Apple Cider Slaying, features Winnie on her grandmother's apple orchard. Winnie wants to open a cider shop. She doesn't open it in book 1. She does open it in book 2. I didn't enjoy the cozy side of book 1 because we spend a lot of time in the apple orchard, which is just not something that appeals to me. But Winnie wanting to open an apple cider shop is something that was interesting for me. I'm not American. I'm not around apple cider. at all. I'm not saying you can't get it here, but it's nowhere near as big in Australia as it is in America. So the apple cider shop did appeal to me. In book number 2, we didn't get a lot of time at her cider shop. The book opens up being at her cider shop because they're hosting a wedding reception. It's a way for Winnie to make money, I guess, with the cider shop. But at the wedding reception, someone dies. So we're not spending a lot of time with Winnie doing what she would normally do at her cider shop because a death occurred there and we need to try and solve a mystery instead of focusing on the cider shop. So that annoyed me. And that's why Pulp Fiction was worse for me than Apple Cider Slaying. Coming in at number 7 is Death of a Chocoholic by Lee and Hollis. So yes, there's a theme here. 2 Julianne Lindsays from the same series and 2 Lee and Hollises from the same series. But the reason why Death of a Chocoholic stands above the rest is because this is book number 4 in the Hayley Powell Food and Cocktail Mystery series. And it really upset me. So I was saying earlier how books 1, 2, and 3 in this series got 5 stars from me. I was under the impression all of them would. I loved books 1, 2, and 3 so much. Book 4 was offensive. And I have different rules for the way that I see things depending upon what the genre is. For example, if some character is going to be offensive in a horror, well, you kind of forgive it because it's a horror. But in a cozy, where things are meant to be cozy, what is so cozy about being offensive? I don't know. You tell me. So in this particular book, and I'm not giving away any spoilers, but we come across a character who is plus sized. She's not skinny. She's not average size. She is plus sized. Our protagonist, who doesn't seem like someone who is offensive at all up until this point in book 4, realizes that she is plus sized, and any opportunity she has to think about this character being plus size and think offensively about it, she takes. As well, this plus size character just so happens to be a hoarder. She has a lot of different items throughout her house that she has hoarded over a long period of time. And our protagonist, again, who doesn't seem like someone who is an offensive character, seems rather offended by it and takes every opportunity she can to express that offense in some way, shape, or form. It was just an offensive book all round and really let me down. Almost convinced me to give up entirely on the series. So I haven't given up on the series, although there have been many reasons for me to give up on the series. More to come in another reading vlog at some point soon. But I haven't given up on the series yet, and I'm glad that I haven't. But this book nearly convinced me to DNF the entire series because that's how offensive it was. If you are intending on reading the Hayley Powell Food and Cocktail Mystery Series and I'm scaring you off because of book 4, do yourself the favor, read books 1, 2, and 3 and then just jump on into book 5 and just skip book 4. You don't need to read book 4 and then you'll just skip over the offensive stuff because you won't be reading it. Coming in at number 6 is Blue Moon by Alison Noel. Okay, so this is book number 2 in the Immortals series, where we follow a girl who ends up receiving these abilities, these psychic abilities. I suppose it's a paranormal series. But what sets her apart from a lot of other people who come into abilities is she does not want these abilities and she's trying to do everything to get them off her. Yeah. So she ends up, meeting this supernatural being in book 1 who there's a lot more to him than meets the eye. There's a paranormal side to him as well. And I really enjoyed book number 1. I found it different to be following a magic system about a psychic and as well as the boyfriend, who I won't give away what his paranormal side is, but that as well. Then we came into book 2. Oh my goodness. I was so looking forward to book 2 after how much I love book 1. Book 2 let me down so much. It was so incredibly disappointing. So the series very much went off the rails in this one. First of all, the boyfriend is put in a position where he, quote unquote, doesn't know her, doesn't know the main character. She rocks up one day at school and he goes, "Who are you? I don't know you." And I knew right away that something paranormal was going on because it's a paranormal series. So obviously he's under a spell or in some weird world or something like that. But my very next thought was, why are we doing this now? It is way too early in the series. We've just met this guy in book 1. It doesn't make sense that this is happening very early on in book 2. So that let me down. But also, after that, we then have the ending of book 2. There's a lot that I can't say because it's a spoiler, but the ending is potentially, of book 2, is potentially setting us up for something for the rest of the series. And if that is the case, then I've gone from giving book 1 an overwhelming 5 stars to probably gonna DNF the series, because something has come up that we need to deal with. I'm trying to keep the spoiler free. Something's come up that we need to deal with that could potentially take over the series, because it could take a long time to deal with. And if it does, then it's taking away from what makes the series amazing. So it's a curveball, but not a good curveball at all. So yeah, just overall, it incredibly let me down. But that's the first half of the list. Now let's get into the second half. Coming in at number 5 is Always and Forever Lara Jean. Oh my word. So I wanted to read a male-female romance series and put it on my SAS list this year just to ensure that I did. And so I picked the To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy, thinking I'll give it a go. I'll focus on this specific book, which is the third and final book in the trilogy, but let me tell you, the first half of book 1 let me down. The second half of book 1 I liked. I loved all of book 2. So the reason I'm telling you this is because I came into book 3 with high expectations. I had really loved everything in book 2. And then we come into book 3 and I guess I can say this because it's not really a spoiler for the series. So in the series, we're following Lara Jean, who is a high schooler. In the third book, she's in her final year at high school. So she's applying for universities. But Jenny Han, who is the author of the series, brings up that Lara Jean is applying for universities right away in chapter 1. Now, I was already having an issue with this in chapter 1, with it just coming up in chapter 1, because unless Jenny Han planned to follow Lara Jean to uni or to college or whatever it is, then what is the point? Like, we can't follow her, so we're not going to know what the outcome is, so why are we doing this? But also, it was very much a situation of the beginning of the end, if that makes sense. Like, all this time we've been with Lara Jean in high school, and now we're applying for uni, and the entire book, uni, college, call it what you will, different people in different areas call it different things, but you know what I mean. They're applying for the education that comes up after high school, and the entire book centered around this, and her boyfriend end up, well, he gets into a school that she doesn't get into, and there just becomes this whole issue of, I mean, it's a romance and it's a YA, so I should expect it, but it becomes a whole issue of, what are they going to do? Is it going to break them up? Should she follow her heart? Should she follow her head? It's a great premise. It's a great idea. It's just, it really let me down because it's the final book in the series and there's no way to be able to watch her follow through on whatever it is. So even without giving away what she ends up deciding, if she decides to follow her heart and sacrifice going to college to be with this guy, we can't follow her because it will happen after the series has concluded, so we're not going to be able to see that. And if she decides not to follow her heart and go for a school that fits her intellect, which is a different one to her boyfriend, we're also not going to be able to follow her there, so we're not going to be able to see how this, how the cards fell after this decision took place. So I was already let down in chapter 1 thinking, why is this even happening? And then there was so much melodrama, and then she makes her decision, whatever it is, and then, as I predicted, we can't follow her. It's the end of the series, so we know what she chose. The end. And yeah, it just wasn't satisfying at all and really let me down. Coming in at number 4 and just missing out on a medal was this book, My Only Sunshine by M.J. Fleming. Oh my goodness me. Okay. I had been eagerly anticipating this book for 3 years. I wanted to get back into thrillers. For those of you who don't know, and for those of you who do, I apologize, I'm saying it again, but for the umpteenth time. But for those of you who don't know, I have read a number of different thrillers here and there throughout my booktube career, and prior to this year, only one had stood out for me as being like a golden thriller, 5 stars worth thriller. So what I wanted to do was try and give more thrillers a go this year in the hopes that I could come across another amazing thriller. And I was told by so many different sources that My Only Sunshine by M.J. Fleming is going to be that thriller for me, and it just wasn't at all. So we're following this girl, I don't remember her name, but anyway, she was kidnapped at a young age by this guy, and she was, placed into a room that she couldn't escape from, but eventually she ends up escaping. This is not a spoiler because we follow her after she's escaped. So the kidnap is something that occurred in her past. So she ends up escaping and, getting home. But of course, psychologically, she's been damaged and a lot of this stuff is going to stay with her. The PTSD, the trauma, the triggers, things like that are going to stay with her. So the question even on the book says she's free, but is she really? And that's true. Is she really free? And so she starts because the guy who captured her is also not caught, it becomes a question of, is he still out there? Now, there's a lot of things that, there's a lot of thriller readers out there who don't want to know too much about a thriller because they consider it to be a spoiler. So all I'm going to say is a lot of the thriller aspect of the majority of the book revolves around, is he out there or is he not? And it just didn't come across in a thriller-ish way for me at all. The book received 3 stars, which makes it an average read for me, and the only reason it was because our main character ends up doing some hypnotherapy, which brings back memories of what happened when she was abducted. I can say that much. I don't think that's a spoiler. Things come up. I won't tell you what they are. But yeah, obviously that was very dramatic and that was very thriller-y. But aside from that, up until we get to the climax, nothing thrillery happens, and I've just gotten to the point where I'm getting sick and tired of picking up books that are labeled as thrillers, and yet to me they might as well be contemporaries in thriller clothing. They're just not thrillers. A thriller's main purpose should be to thrill you, hence why it's a thriller. You should be on the edge of your seat when you read a thriller. With a contemporary, you're not necessarily going to be on the edge of your seat. With a hard-hitting contemporary, it may affect you in a certain way, but you're not necessarily going to be on the edge of your seat. But with a thriller, you are meant to be on the edge of your seat with excitement or your heart racing while you're reading the book, because that is the point of a thriller, my word. Do I have to go out there and explain this to authors and publishing companies? The point of a thriller is to thrill your reader. And if you're not thrilling them, why is it being called a thriller? It doesn't make sense to me. And seriously, I get upset because that's what it's labeled as. If you were to label books correctly and call them contemporaries or hard-hitting contemporaries, then okay, I'll go in with that expectation. But if you label it a thriller, it needs to be a thriller, and this just wasn't. The conclusion to this book was, it was okay. I mean, no, that's not true. It wasn't okay. It was horrible, in my opinion. So I felt like we were being teased for this big, massive thing that was going to happen at the end. And the payoff getting there wasn't worth it for me. We get to this big reveal. Something goes down. Again, trying to not give away spoilers. Something goes down. But it just didn't thrill me, and come on, it's a thriller. I mean, do I stand alone here? If any of y'all out there that are listening to this read thrillers, it's okay if I stand alone, but let me know in the comments below if I do. Do I stand alone here, or if you read a thriller, do you go into that thriller expecting to be thrilled? Like, come on. Okay, coming in at number 3, here we go. It's medal time. The bronze medal for the 3rd worst book that I read in the first half of 2023. sadly, it's a book that was recommended to me, but I take nothing away from the person who recommended it to me because they've recommended some great books to me in the past. This book just didn't work for me, and that is this book, The Getaway by Lamar Giles. Okay. This book, I need to give you an asterisk here. And that asterisk is, according to Goodreads, okay? And we'll say that again. According to Goodreads. And one more time for those in the back. According to Goodreads, this is a horror. No, Goodreads, it is not. Now, I was saying earlier with My Only Sunshine, I go into a book, I didn't say this, but I will say it now. I go into all of my books blind, with the exception of knowing the title, the author, the age rating, and the genre. I want to know the age rating and the genre because I want to have certain expectations that will come with the fact that the book is a certain age rating and a certain genre. So with this book, I went in expecting a YA horror. Let's take away the fact that it's YA and just say I was expecting a horror. I didn't really feel like I got a horror. I got to the end of the book and thought, as a horror, this really let me down. And the cover even looks like it's a horror. Like, come on. And then I found out, according to the publishers, it is not a horror, or if it is, horror is a secondary genre. The main genre is dystopian. The problem with that is the cover doesn't make it look like a dystopian, so it's very deceptive. It looks like it's a horror, and Goodreads claims that it's a horror when it's not. So I went in expecting a horror and I got a dystopian instead. So I feel like I was falsely advertised by the cover and by Goodreads, not by the publisher. The publisher do say it's a dystopian, but by the cover and by Goodreads. So if you go into this book and want to read it, go in, unlike me, thinking of it as a dystopian, despite the look of the cover, that it's a dystopian, and you may actually enjoy it, because as a dystopian, it's a great book. But as a horror, there are horror elements pieced and parceled here and there throughout the book, which make it a 3-star horror. So even, it doesn't matter if it's a middle grade horror or YA horror or adult horror. If it is a horror, you expect for there to be horror elements pertaining to the age rating of the book. And for a YA, there are YA horror elements in the book, but nowhere near enough. So that's what let me down. I was waiting for the horrific moments, be they YA or no, I was waiting for them. And they were so few and far between that it extremely let me down. Also, I was very confused a lot of the time with the book and needed to do a lot of research to try and understand what the heck was going on, especially at the beginning. I felt like there wasn't enough of an explanation as we were moving forward following the characters. So I was already, put offside by the beginning anyway. So there you go. That's number 3. The Getaway by Lamar Giles. Coming in at number 2 and receiving the silver medal from me is this book, my only 2-star, which is this book, Mums and Mayhem by Amanda Flower. This is an adult cozy mystery, and it is book number 3 in the Magic Garden mystery series. Had you said to me a year ago, Mr. Francy, you're going to give an Amanda Flower book, the silver medal for your second worst book of the first half of the year next year, I would say you're crazy. Amanda Flower is amazing. I would never do that. Well, Amanda Flower let me down. And that's okay, because my favourite male author, Brandon Sanderson, has let me down too. The thing is, the way I see it, and I've always felt this way even from childhood, if I love someone enough, then I feel that I have the right, as someone who loves a certain famous person enough, to be able to critique them. Because I do it out of love. And with Amanda Flower, I'm definitely going to do it with the Magic Garden mystery series as a whole. But book 3 is the one that deserves the silver medal. And I'll tell you why. This series, very plainly, this series is called the Magic Garden Mystery Series. We get a little bit of information on the garden in book 3. In book 1, we get a little bit more in book 2, and my hope was, and my thought was, well, since book 3 is wrapping up the series, we're going to learn a heck of a lot about the garden in book 3 so that we know exactly what's going on, because it's the final book in the series, and we just didn't. It's not to say we didn't spend a lot of time in the garden in book 3. We did. But the series is literally called the Magic Garden Mystery Series. And in book 3, by the time I got into book 3, I still didn't know next to anything at all about the freaking magic in the garden. Like, this is a qualm I've had with a lot of cozy mysteries. I may not have a qualm with the series, but I'll have a qualm with the series title. Why title a series something if that thing isn't the dominating feature? In this series as a whole, we follow our protagonist whose name is Fiona Knox. Why wasn't it called the Fiona Knox Mystery Series? Why was it called the Magic Garden Mystery Series if we don't have a lot of Magic Garden stuff going on and we finished the series without even knowing what the heck's going on with the freaking Magic Garden? Like, I'm sorry, oh my gosh, I don't read cozy, in case you don't know, I don't read my cozies for the mystery. Sometimes I'll like the mystery, sometimes I won't, but because I read standard mysteries anyway, when I go into a cozy, I go in for the cozy elements, the non-mystery elements. And so the non-mystery element of this series was the Magic Garden. We don't know about the Magic Garden, or we don't really understand the magic at all, by the time we're done with the series. What the heck is going on here? Also, the main character annoyed me so much, Fiona Knox, especially in this last book. She annoyed me so much. I'm so glad there was only 3 books in the series. No hate at all to Amanda Flower. Overall, as an author, I do love her. She's my favorite female author of all time. But this series, if I'm to be honest, you can give it a miss. You can give it a miss. I'm glad I read it. I can tick it off my list as an Amanda Flower series read, but yeah, you can give it a miss. But coming in at number 1 and receiving the gold medal, without a doubt in my mind, is the only 1-star book that I have, 1-star rating I've given to a book in the last 2 years and 10 months. Yeah. There was a book that I read in the last 2 years and 10 months that I didn't rate at all. But because it got 0 stars, it doesn't count. So the last 1 star was 2 years and 10 months ago. And that's this book, Rabbits, by Terry Miles. It deserves the gold medal by a long shot. This is a book that if you read the premise, makes you feel like you are going to read a thriller where the main character is involved in a thriller-style game. No. No. I wasted my time with this book. I want that time back. I want to be refunded the money that I spent on the book. I want to be refunded the money that I spent on the audiobook. And I want to be refunded for all the time I spent reading this book thinking it's going to get better, and then just never did. That's not going to happen. I'm going to have to learn to just live with it. But honestly, this book, I don't understand how this book could even get past that publishing stage. It was traditionally published. I don't get that. This is not a book about a main character in a game, in a thriller style game. This is a book where we have a main character who's heard of a thriller style game. She's obsessed with what she's heard. The game is played every year, but the game is very hush-hush, so only those in the know the amount that they know. She's considered an expert because of things she's dug up here and there and sorted through the wheat and the chaff to find out what she thinks is right and real and what she thinks is wrong and false. And then she spends the majority of the book trying to find this game because she really wants to play it. Fantastic. I'm so glad for you that you're trying to find the game. Why are we following you trying to find this game? This is a thriller. Well, it's a sci-fi thriller. Yeah, I have an issue with it even being a sci-fi, so we won't go there. We'll just push that aside and just say it's a thriller, because if you want to talk about it being a sci-fi, I have issues with that too, but we don't have time. It's a thriller. It's a thriller. It's meant to be a thriller about a main character playing a game. It is not. It is a thriller about our main character who's obsessed with the game, which she believes exists, and she's trying to find the game. And really, no, No, don't waste your time. If you want to read a thriller or a horror with a game in it, read The Housemates by Ian Robb Wright and give this one a miss. Save your money. How it got past publishing, I will never know. But that is it for my worst books of the first half of 2023. We'll be back with something more fun, I would think, in the next round. Yes, best books. So until then, letting you all go with peace, blessings, and so much love. Please do be kind and love one another and spread your sparkling energy all throughout the world. And until next time, happy reading. Bye, everyone.